The Comedy MX Entertainment Channel spotlights unique videos found nowhere else. Visit World Fairs, see atomic explosions, the golden age of trains, rare comedy features. You can even see the USA in your Chevrolet. It starts with a big capital E that stands for enjoy and never ends. So indulge your passions and binge watch all night.
Whether Red Grange ever hung up any sales record as a high-pressure iceman, the book will show. But the chances are that the only man who'll argue that Grange was not the galloping ghost is the guy who owns that ice wagon. Otherwise, I guess it's unanimous that this Illinois halfback was the football player of all time. Who, for instance, will ever forget that afternoon here on Philadelphia's rain-strengthened field, October 31st, back in 1925? For years, being tall tales of the mighty Red Grange, but the East had heard that Superman stuff before. What would he do against the first-class team? So against Pennsylvania, undefeated, and the crack 11 of the East, and in weather conditions that were more a hazard than an obstacle, Red here has himself one of the most memorable days of his college career. What made Grange the more phenomenal was the fact that he was a marked man in every game he played. It was also in 1925 that a quiet, serious-minded Helen Wills, having just won the national crown, was in the third year of her reign as our Queen of the Courts. Inevitable, then, that sooner or later she must face the great French artist, Suzanne Lenglen, whose flashing racket dominates the courts of Europe. So to the French Riviera goes Helen, there to have it out with the famed Mademoiselle. Helen is 19, Suzanne 26. It is February 16th, 1926, and verily the tennis battle of the century. The crowd, expecting to see the Californian blasted from the court, is spellbound as Helen returns the fire in rally after rally of fast and furious play. As for Suzanne, the onslaught so surprises her that she seems frightened at the thought that she might be dethroned. But then it happens that Helen Wills does something she seldom if ever does again. She eases up when wisdom demands continued pressure, and thus the battle tide wavers and turns in favor of the tiring French star, who squeezes out her triumph by set scores of 6-3, 8-6. Immediately there arises great speculation on a return match, but it's not to be. Suzanne turns professional, denying poker face Helen her second chance. For Helen, to this day, staunchly remains an amateur. That sleek-looking chariot that Barney tunes up is the famed 999, the racing job that Henry Ford built back in 1902, and in which Barney Oldfield climbed to the unheard-of speed of 60 miles an hour. And so came into existence the phrase mile a minute. And so Barney looked when he slid into the cockpit, cigar in his mouth, stepped on the gas, and roared away. It was in 1919, 20 years ago, that a young southpaw named George Herman Ruth was taking his turn on the mound for the Boston Red Sox and doing all right. He had a fast breaking curve and plenty of zip, but he had something else. A pair of hands and a flair for knocking the apple out of the ball yard. So the Red Sox lost a pitcher and gained an outfielder, and baseball's immortal king of SWAT is on his way. For by 1920, the Bambino has transferred his allegiance to the New York Yankees. By 1926, the Yankees could well boast that they possessed the mightiest man in baseball. For the Babe that year establishes no less than 10 new World Series records, among them a par-shattering mark of 3 home runs in a single series game. The series, incidentally, being the St. Louis Cardinals-Yankee affair that St. Louis won in 7 games. There was another who shared that series spotlight, none other than Grover Cleveland Alexander, who turns in his greatest single moment here in the Yankee Stadium on October 10th, 1926. Manager Hornsby has called him from the bullpen. A relief pitcher, 7th inning, bases full. The Cards lead 3-2. Old Pete pitches to Lazeri. Well, the rest is history. Alex whipped over the 3 strikes that snapped the Yankee rally and virtually clinched the series for the Cards. One of the greatest afternoons in the history of baseball. Certainly one that old Pete will never forget. Norwegian by birth, Notre Dame by adoption, the figure of Knute Rockne assumes greater stature with each passing year. In football, a master strategist, a dynamo force, yet loved to a point of worship by those whom he taught.
I don't want spring football unless you do. Now, all those in favor of coming out for spring football, those who insist on having football, insist on having Hunk and Shav and Vadish and I take charge of this spring, will all signify by saying aye.
At Ebbetsfield, Brooklyn, against the Army in 1923, 4 horsemen running wild through the cadet defenses. There's Crowley on a rampage. The Irish win 13-0. Then in 1930, in what has come to be known as the year of Notre Dame's greatest team, Rockne's watchword was always, block out your man. O'Connor finds the theory working to perfection as he gallops 80 yards to Notre Dame's 19th consecutive victory. Again against the Army, Jack Elder intercepts an Army touchdown pass on his own 2-yard line, and the camera captures one of its treasured shots as Elder outraces the entire Army team to score the second period touchdown, the only score of the game. Destiny's favorite thoroughbred, a war baby, foaled in 1917. And as would naturally attend a fellow born in such troubled times, the racing career of Big Red was a span of 2 crowded years. For it was after his campaign as a 3-year-old that Man o' War was retired to the stud, leaving behind him a glorious record of 20 victories in 21 starts. Today, amid the clover and Kentucky bluegrass of faraway farm, he whiles away the hours, carefree and contented in the twilight of his life. For Man o' War is now an old man, 22 years old. You know, it's strange but true that concerning this young lady, there are many who are surprised to learn that she's done anything except swim the English Channel. Prior to this fateful day of August the 6th, 1926, Trudy had been a world amateur champion, holding no less than 29 records over assorted distances ranging from 50 to 880 yards. But this, of course, is Trudy's greatest day. For we see her here in the throes of that 14.5-hour battle against the wind and the tides of the 35-mile span. And sweet are the joys of triumph as Trudy arrives home, met by the folks aboard a tug that churns its way to the battery where Gertrude Ederle walks into the rousiest welcome since the return of the AEF. And here we are back in 1924. Paavo Nurmi, the Flying Finn, has just blazed his name in great Olympic headlines. So he comes to America for a nationwide assault on the record. In his first trial against a squad of American Indians, Nurmi runs the mile in 4 minutes, 12 seconds flat. The doctors examine him. 4 minutes, 12 seconds, the man is a freak. How times have changed. Today, at 4 minutes, 12 seconds, he'd be crowded off the track. But 5 years later, 1929, Nurmi shows up in the 2-mile run of the Penn Relays at Franklin Field, Philadelphia. The zip is still there. It's more than one can say for his hair. But that great flawless stride that propelled him to Olympic renown 5 years before again serves him well, as he shatters the old mark by a margin of 17 2/5 seconds. What a man. And it began nearly 20 years ago, a broiling summer afternoon at Toledo, July 4th, 1919. Jess Willard, within 4 rounds, a helpless, battered hulk, Dempsey, had won the crown. But 7 years later, we find him here at Hendersonville, North Carolina. It's April 1926. 2 months from now, he climbs through the ropes at Philadelphia to have it out with Tunney. Well, from here on, you know the old story. The Manassas Mauler has been idle since the night he flattened Purpo 3 years ago. Too long. Tunney takes him, not once, but twice. And yet, how amazing. Today, 20 years later, Dempsey is still the hero of the crowds, the idol of the kids. I like to imagine that some golf historian of the future will set apart the year 1930 and devote it to the exploits of the great Emperor Jones. For it was during that eventful year that Bobby scored the immortal Grand Slam for all posterity to shoot at. And so let's follow him as he hurdles the milestone during that monumental campaign. His test occurs outside Minneapolis. He's already won the British Open and the British Amateur. And here at the Interlaken Club, he leads the field in the United States Open. The pressure is on. Jones, the high-strung champion, paces the veteran McDonald Smith by 2 strokes. Wary even toward the camera, lest he lose for a moment that master's touch. But today, Bobby Jones is supreme. As his famous putter, Calamity Jane, responds like a magic wand. Watch. Jones going after a 40-foot putt for the National Open crown. For a little lady making her first screen appearance, I'm sure you'll agree that even here we may see signs of the world's brightest star ascending. For this is a January day in Oslo, Norway, back in 1925. Sonja is all of 12 years old, but she's just won the figure skating championship of Scandinavia. The following year, she places second in the world competition at Stockholm, Sweden. But from then on, and for the next decade, her crown glitters with the jewels of 10 world championships and 3 Olympic titles. And so she reigns as the world's queen of the ice, until our own 20th Century Fox claims her for the silver screen. And the queen, who back in 1925 here was the little princess, becomes Hollywood's lucky star and one of the world's sports immortals.
Young man from Detroit has become known the world over as the Brown Bomber. With his powerful fists, he's blasted his way to the heavyweight championship. Let's go in the scenes of his mountain training camp and watch this young Hercules in action. 6 a.m. finds him out on the road for his daily 6-mile run. There he is on the left, knocking off those miles just as easy as he knocks out an opponent. All of which adds up to a big, hearty appetite for breakfast. Joe's the first one at the table. And while he reads the sport pages, let's peek in the kitchen. Hurry up that breakfast, chef. The champ's hungry. That aroma of food must smell good to a fella after a 6-mile run. Get ready, champ. The victuals are on the way. Now let's watch Joe. He's a champ at the table, too, and it takes plenty of ammunition to supply the dynamite for those fists. Around the training table are the men who guide the ring career of Joe Louis. There's Jack Blackburn, his trainer. Co-manager. Training camp meals are informal affairs. Everything goes, especially the food. And after breakfast, Joe and his managers plan the day's training activities. Julian Black is the other half of the managing partnership that discovered Joe Louis had the makings of a champion. And John Roxborough knows that their hunch was right. Yes, the champ likes to read. Besides, this mental relaxation is necessary because there's a hard day ahead. Now, when a fella gets tired of reading, there are lots of other things around a training camp to do. For instance, Joe plays a swell game of pool when he's in the mood. And incidentally, this is the only spot where he ever gets behind the 8-ball. Jitterbug Joe, he likes his swing music. In the ring, he swings without the music. But when he relaxes, he swings with it. And Joe has a collection of hot records he plays on his portable phonograph. And when he gets that look on his face, he's being sent. And I mean sent. There are tons of mail from all over the world. Joe couldn't answer half of them if he tried. But he does try to answer some. And here's another important fellow who remains in the background, usually. He's Joe's trainer, Jack Blackburn, who's developed the champ into a cool, calm, powerful engine of destruction. Blackburn's nickname for Joe is Chappie. They're great pals. Now it's time to start some real work. It always starts with 5 minutes of shadow boxing, around and around the ring. This warms up the champ, loosens up his muscles, and gets him ready for rounds of boxing with his sparring partners. There's Jack Blackburn in the champ's corner. He greases Joe's face and puts on his gloves. Joe's sparring partners are the highest paid in the business, and don't you think they don't earn every cent of their money either. He doesn't fool around in the ring. He gives his sparring partners terrific punishment, and they have to fight or else. But the champ's a pretty regular guy. He doesn't like to knock them out. It would be tough if he couldn't find any more sparring partners to box with. Joe's footwork has earned the title of Shufflin' Joe. He knows how to handle his underpinnings, no effort wasted, no stumbling about. Looking around outside the ring, we find these lady visitors taking in the action. Joe moves in a semi-crouch, fists ready for anything. And the champ is really best at counterfighting. Lead to him, and he usually jolts you with a swift left jab or hook. When he whips across a murderous right, after that, curtains. Experts have raved over the marvelous accuracy with which Joe throws his punches. These workouts on the punching bag help to develop that. Notice that left. I said notice it, but don't ever get in front of it. Skipping rope is an old exercise for fighters. They do it even more than little girls, and much better, too. Skip, skip, skip. That develops the footwork. So the champion finishes his training day with flying colors. And need I mention that being a champ is no bed of roses. Oftentimes there are important visitors around camp. Here's Jim Braddock says, good luck. Even after all that exercise, the champ still looks as fresh as a daisy. Always in the pink of condition, he's the idol of countless thousands. Standing 6 feet 1 3/4 inches tall, weighing 200 pounds, with biceps 14 inches around and a 3-inch chest expansion, this young ring warrior has given the boxing world some of its most outstanding ring action and knockouts, such as Carnere in the 6th round, Bear in the 4th, Braddock in 8 rounds when he won the world's heavyweight championship title. And as champion beat Schmeling in 1 round. The hero of crowds wherever he goes, Joe Louis has not been affected by fame, photographers, cheering fight fans, and other things that can annoy a champion. After a fight, the champ's most cherished reward is a great big thick steak. And here he is in Harlem after a victory having just such a steak. His favorite dessert is ice cream, and there's Henry Armstrong, 2 champions, consequently 2 plates of ice cream. And these fellas start out on a great big ice cream binge. Behind the scenes of a weigh-in before his fights, Joe Louis still retains that calm and coolness that has paralyzed opponents before the gong. When he met John Henry Lewis, doctors who examined Joe were amazed at his calm manner before battle. Nothing seems to bother him. Even the newspaper's flashbulbs going off in his face doesn't bother Joe. It was the same cold, calm Joe Louis who defended his title against a man of his own race, posed pleasantly with John Henry Lewis at the weigh-in, and then knocked him out in the 1 round that evening. Joe Louis remains king of the ring. His might under Brown Bomber blasts down all before him who challenge his title of heavyweight of the world.
Garden to the entrance of the stadium, the streets were one long stream of color. Green flagpoles bearing a scarlet banner with a swastika in the center were spaced every 50 feet. And at the entrance were the massed flags of 52 nations participating in the game. Through these flag-bedecked streets, the giant Hindenburg points the way to the arena. A runner with a flaming torch, which was lighted in Athens, birthplace of the Olympic Games, arrives at the Lust Garden to be saluted. From the archway of the Marathon Gate enters the athletes of 52 nations, led by the Greeks, as is their right for having originated the game. A champion of the '96 Olympiad walks in the costume of ancient Greece. The others follow in alphabetical order, with the French receiving the biggest applause. Great Britain receives a great ovation as they pass the dais. The Italians also received a rousing reception as they passed in review. Then came the boys and girls of the USA, 400 strong, second only to Germany in numbers. They received a cordial, if not overwhelming, welcome when their massive columns appeared. But just as their head arrived at the dais, the German contingent came into sight at the marathon gate. Immediately, the band stopped the march it was playing and broke into Deutschland über alles. The audience, rising promptly, froze into silent attention, so that the Americans marched not to applause, but to the German national anthem. The athletes amassed on the field, their flags dipped, as Blue Jackets standing beside the great flagpole in the arena slowly raised the International Olympic flag. At the steps at the far end of the arena appeared a white-clad figure bearing aloft a flaming torch. It was the last runner of the relay of 3,000 youths from 7 nations who, through daylight and dark, through storm and sunshine, carried the Olympic flame, first lit at the Temple of Zeus, Athens, and carried across Europe to Berlin, running up a great stairway to a platform near the top, where stood a small black altar. Touching the flame to the top, a mighty flame sprang forth and officially opening the 1936 Olympics. 120,000 people in the crowded stadium watched American athletes write a new chapter in the history of sports as the boys and girls of the United States track and field team carried Old Glory time and again to victory, crowning new immortals in the sport world. Then America took her first gold medal when Cornelius Johnson from California won the high jump, shattering the Olympic record. Jesse Owens, the Buckeye Bullet, stepped into his dust and roll as he streaked down the red cinder path in the 100-meter dash to win in the phenomenal time of 10 2/5 seconds, breaking all existing world records. He takes his new honors modestly as he smiles and awaits his chance to win new laurels for his homeland. And he repeats in the 200-meter, this fastest human being in the world when he flashes down the track for a new world record and his 3rd Olympic crown. Here is a slow-motion camera study of the discus throw. The final was won by Kenneth Carpenter of Compton, California. Forrest Towns captured the high hurdles for the USA. He started slow, trailing the others, but when that Georgia timber topper started to run, he seemed to float through space, barely skimming the sticks. And when he put on the steam at the finish, he won America's 9th gold medal. The pole vault was a toss-up between America and Japan, with Earl Meadows' USA finally winning. 2 Japanese were tied for 2nd place. Gloom descended on Germany when a member of the German women's 400-meter relay race, pride of the fatherland, dropped the baton. The jubilant crowd, sure of another gold medal, saw victory turned into tragedy and defeat. The girls proved they were genuine women by bursting into tears on the field. Helen Stevens was the key member of the winning American team. Morris, flanked by Bob Clark and Jack Parker, made a clean sweep of the modern decathlon. And once again, Old Glory tells the story. America's... And now America wins diving honors, and here are the aquatic stars that did it. That was Dick Degner of the University of Michigan, who was first. Marshall Wayne of Miami, second. And Al Green of Chicago, third. It was 1, 2, 3 for America. And for the fourth time, America shut out the rest of the world. This time it was the women divers who followed the lead of the men and achieved a triple victory. Marjorie Gestring, a blonde, small, and very much tanned 13-year-old schoolgirl from sunny California, took the gold medal. The silver medal went to Catherine Rawls, national champion. And the bronze medal to Mrs. Dorothy Poynton Hill, also of California. And here is the form that won for Uncle Sam.